This morning I spoke with President Zelensky and highlighted once again the strength and determination of the Ukrainian people and told him that Canada will soon be sending highly specialized equipment to them, and invited him to address Parliament in Canada, and he accepted. Today I can announce an additional $50 million worth of equipment that we will be sending towards Ukraine to help out. But more than just the challenge in Ukraine, there's a larger challenge around protecting and standing up for our democracies, both internally and externally, and that means fighting disinformation. We need to work together to defend and strengthen democracy for everyone in our countries. So today I can announce that Canada is renewing the G7 Rapid Response Mechanism. The RRM was first introduced at the G7 in Charlevoix that we hosted 4 years ago to strengthen coordination between countries submitted to influence and disinformation from foreign actors. It responds to threats from people who want to undermine our democracies, including through disinformation. In addition, $3 million will be provided to tackle Russian disinformation about Ukraine specifically. We need to stand up for truth and be vigilant against disinformation that tries to mislead us and more tries to divide us.
Justin Trudeau from earlier today, Canada continuing to ramp up sanctions, and I find that really interesting, this idea of combating misinformation or propaganda from the Russian side in this battle. EMILE GHESSEN is he's a conflict documentary journalist, and there's a conflict, of course, right now in Ukraine, so he had to be there, and he's on the line this afternoon. EMILE, thanks so much for your time today.
No, thank you.
Can you tell us, first of all, I asked this question, and I know this is your business, if you were, because there's a conflict zone and you feel you need to be there. How early on did you make that decision? Did you think we were actually going to get to this place? Because remember, at the beginning, the Russians said, no, this is just military training. There'll be no invasion. Did you have in your mind then that this would not work out that way?
No, you're totally right. I'm a former British War-Marine commander. I served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and then since leaving the military, I do feature documentaries on war zones in Iraq, Syria, one in Ukraine before, and the war in Artsakh between Armenia and Azerbaijan. So geopolitically, I understand, and I'm always monitoring what's going on. And I, hand on heart, never thought Putin would get to the stage where he would actually invade actual sovereignty Ukraine. So for me, it was a massive shock, and it is for a lot of people that deal in geopolitics and work in journalism. But we are here we are now, and there's a full-scale war going on in Ukraine.
You're in Kyiv. As we mentioned, you've been in conflict zones before in Afghanistan and Iraq. What are you seeing there now, and how does it compare to your other experiences, EMILE?
Yeah, so I just recently finished a feature film, 45 Days to Fight for a Nation, on the war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. That was a very heavily drone warfare. And my previous documentaries I've done in previous service, this war is very different in the sense that we're dealing with Moscow, Russia here. Generally, like in Artsakh during that war, is Russia was the peacekeepers. They came in and mediated and came in and took over and said, all right, stop fighting. The difference in this war is no one in the world can tell Russia to stop fighting. Of course, the international community put sanctions on them, but I find personally that's probably making Putin more defiant. Unless NATO directly gets involved, which will then escalate the whole issue in this region and worldwide, I think at the moment, who's going to do the negotiation at the moment? So this war is very much, Ukraine's a large country. There's several battlefronts currently ongoing. Like you're saying, I'm in Kyiv, and I was on the front line the other day, and it's literally 5 miles from here, and you're getting shot at and artillery and mortars. I'm in the centre of Kyiv at the moment. The bombing that's going on currently around here is strategic direct attacks onto communication centres and military bases, but only a few miles up the road it's a totally different story. And I was there with civilians that were coming across the bridge from Irpin, which is the nearest front line to Kyiv at the moment, because the Russians are encircling the whole city. And as we were there filming, civilians coming out of the area, we came under attack, and so were the civilians. And it's just heartbreaking to see that across the whole of Ukraine, there's such a humanitarian issue going on here. And at the moment, there's no light in the tunnel when it's going to end.
You know, as you describe the situation, I think back, we had someone on the air yesterday, Emile, who was in Lviv, describing the situation there really as kind of normal, except not, because windows are being taped up. They turn off their lights at night, but otherwise it seems to be just the regular day-to-day life for people there. It's obviously a very different situation in Kyiv right now. Is it fair to say from what you're seeing that they are bracing for impact? We've been talking about this Russian convoy getting closer and closer and closer. Is that the feeling there now?
Yeah, within the north and to the west, Kyiv is pretty isolated, it's cut off. There's reports of a British journalist who went to the west, only a few miles, and he's been captured. We're still trying to confirm who he is out of, like the group of people that are around here. There's also the Russians pushing up from the east also. So really they're trying to isolate Kyiv as a city in itself. Lviv is miles away, and that's really the epicenter of where the refugee crisis, the displaced people are conjugating there and trying to get out of the country. So they've got a massive humanitarian issue. And even when I came through Lviv, I traveled to Kyiv by train, and there's hundreds of thousands of people. There's no hotels for them to stay. People sleeping in the streets. There's local charities that are giving them food. It's a terrible situation there. But here in Kyiv at the moment, everyone's just braced for the attack and when it's going to happen. Just before I came on there, the sirens were going off to say there's a bomb, and that throughout the day that continual goes on, the sirens and the psychological effect it's having on the people that remain in the city. Yeah. Because some people are too vulnerable to leave. There's also some people that are so defiant to leave. Ukraine implemented martial law, so all males between age of 18 and 60 are remaining to fight. There's barricades across the city. There's men taking up weapons. You can't go far without a checkpoint. There's a curfew from 8 o'clock to 8 o'clock in the morning, from night to morning, because there's Russian saboteurs out, special forces floating around. So they're very on edge about people being out at night. So in Kyiv, it's very tense because currently everyone's just waiting for the attack to happen, and no one knows when it's going to come. And every time I hear a siren, I'm thinking, is this the moment? Has Putin given the order to try and take Kyiv? The difference is, and the problem with Kyiv, it's a built-up area. It's well defended. You speak to the soldiers and the volunteers here, and they say that the Russians coming to Kyiv is going to be their graveyard. And I think very much so. I fought for 12 years in the military in Iraq and Afghanistan and covered several wars after it. Since that, Kyiv is not going to be an easy target to take.
You know, again, as I hear you describe this, and I'm wondering at some point when you talk to those people, you're just referring to some people you were talking to in the military there, is their attitude now still from the West that they want more? Because, I mean, this no-fly zone idea has been circulating now for a while. It seems the West is obviously not keen on this because that would just expand the war. That's what we're told now. What are those people you're talking to wanting from the West, or from at least from NATO, perhaps?
As I go around, everyone, when they check my passport and they talk to me and they go, where are you from? And I say Britain. They go, we love Britain. You've been helping us out, because Boris Johnson's been very vocal. There's other journalists here, Canadians, Americans. I've been with some Hungarians as well. They're very supportive, and they appreciate the support the West has given them. A lot of people, even across the city, the billboards, electronic LED billboards are saying support no-fly zone across the country. And obviously that comes in locations of NATO then escalating. But I don't think a no-fly zone is going to stop artillery, rockets and stuff. It's going to stop fast jets. But really in this war, fast jets are limited because of the anti-aircraft issue. So I personally, from my military experience, I don't think a no-fly zone is going to actually stop the bombardment that Putin's going to put on. The thing with the people here in Ukraine and Russia are very similar. Like I said about our previous documentary I've done in Artsakh between Armenia and Azerbaijan, there's a difference between the two nations. Ukrainians and Russians are very similar. They have family in Russia or they have family in Ukraine. The fact is that when you speak to civilians, you speak to soldiers here, they don't have a hatred towards Russians at all. And I think in the West there's very much a certain racism towards Russian people over this war who've been tarred with the same brush. The people here just don't like Putin and the Kremlin. It's not about a hatred towards the Russian people, and that's something that people in the West need to be very clear
that's a good point.
About. It's not a hatred towards Russian people at all. It's to do with their foreign policy and how Putin denied the fact he was going to invade Ukraine, lied about it, and then carried out these attacks. And he is carrying out attacks on areas where civilians are trying to get out.
I feel like I do want to tell you that here in Canada, at least our government has been trying very clear to make sure that people understand that this is an issue with the Russian government, specifically with
so
Putin,
important.
not with their people. You're a documentary filmmaker. You're the kind of person who runs into a fire rather than running away from it. I get the sense that Ukrainian people in this circumstance are much like that too, determined to stay and fight. Are you making a documentary film right now, Emile?
So currently my scope is Kyiv. I'm focusing solely on Kyiv. At the moment, I'm just reporting. If the Russians do try to assault Kyiv, I'll then go back into documentary film mode rather than reporting mode.
Okay.
I'm staying fluid. Of course, the security situation here is very fluid. It changes hour to hour, day by day. And even in the last 2 days, so many journalists have left Kyiv because their governments have sent them messages, emails, and said, right, we're telling you it's not safe to stay here any longer. So slowly there's an attrition on journalists leaving. Because I obviously have a different mindset as well as a filmmaker, I'm a former military and I can't get rid of that mindset. So I'm assessing it very carefully. And I don't want to take unnecessary risk. It gets to the stage where it's unsafe for me to remain here. I will then leave the city as well. But at the moment, all I'm doing is reporting, just telling people through my Instagram, through my social media, on what's going on day-to-day life. Like I said, I fought wars for years. I understand how wars are fought. But what captures me with my documentary work is the humanization of war. It's like an onion. There's so many different layers to it. We all know part and parcel of war, soldiers die. But it's capturing the human element about the people that are surrounding them, the mothers, the fathers, the children. And that's what I'm trying to do, is show day-to-day life. And war isn't all doom and gloom for a lot of people. A lot of people in Kyiv, you walk around the city and you speak to them, they're smiling, they'll tell you jokes, but they go, be careful, don't stay out in the open too long because a bomb might drop. So this is what I'm trying to capture, is the human element of war.
Hey, Emile, we thank you so much for making yourself available today. Please take good care of yourself, stay safe, and hopefully we can chat again soon.
Yeah, totally. Very much appreciated.
Take care. EMILE GHESSEN, if you want to follow him, as he said, on Instagram or Twitter, that last name is Ghessen.
I just started following him too. His coverage is absolutely riveting.